pre-release is just around the corner again already. It's only been 8 weeks since Midnight Hunt's pre-release, and we've got a whole new format coming. So there's some similarities with this one to the last one, but it pretty much is just a whole new Innistrad format with some of the mechanics that we've known and loved through the last few weeks. So let's have a look at what we're going to be going on. We'll be looking at some of the mechanics that's going to be coming up. We'll be looking at some of the draft archetypes, and then we'll look at the combat tricks that can happen and the big baddie of the format like I have done for the last few as well. If you do like the video, do the YouTube stuff as usual, but I don't want to dwell on that too much. I'm just going to get on with the video. First up, let's look at a few of the mechanics, and I've went over this one in a little bit more detail, but first off we've got Cleave. So you can see here, it's a Path of Peril. It's a rare in the set which has Cleave, and it's got the normal casting cost in the top right of the card, just like normal. It's also got this Cleave cost, and essentially Cleave works a bit like Kicker or a similar effect like that. So it's comes out a bit like a mortal spell. So you can see here, it's a different way to look at it. You've got two different spells. The casting cost would still be 3, so the mana value would still be 3 with the Cleave cost, but you will be paying 6 mana into it, and you get the effect without the brackets, so without those square brackets. So it's a fairly simple idea, and yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't really like the implementation, but I think it's an interesting mechanic, and it will make for some interesting gameplay. The next mechanic we've got is Training. So Training is, if you've ever played Guilds of Ravnica, where you had the Mentor mechanic, it's like the reverse of that. So when it attacks, if there is another creature with a higher power attacking with it, you put a counter on this. So if this attacks with something with 2 power or 3 power or 100 power, and this is a 1/2, then it gets a counter put on it. Now if it attacks with a 2/2, and this is the 1/2, you get the counter on the first time, but then this will be a 2/2, so its power won't be less than the other creatures. So I think combat tricks where you can buff the creatures with Training to then allow them to buff these creatures again will be really key with this format. I think that'll be something to look out for, and to find ways to power up your creatures so then they can power up the Training creatures. So I think that'll be pretty interesting. Another mechanic we've got is Blood. So Blood tokens are created by a number of cards, usually the vampire cards, which are in, usually red and black cards, and we'll look at that when we get a look at the red and black archetype later on. But other cards do create Blood counters as well. So Blood tokens, they're a bit like treasure or clues or something like that we've seen before. And you pay 1, you tap it, discard a card, sacrifice it, and then you get to draw cards. So you get to do a bit of a loot effect. There's some cards which care about when you have clues, some cards which care about when you sacrifice clues, some cards that just make clues as a bonus, and these are going to show up a lot. So be ready to have quite a few of these available because they are going to be quite a key part of the format, I think. Another mechanic we've got is Exploit. So Exploit is a mechanic we've seen before. I think it was Dragons of Tarkir. Potentially, I can't remember. It's one of the Tarkir sets. And what happens is, when this creature comes in the battlefield, the Exploit trigger triggers. So it'll just say, you can sacrifice a creature. And then if you do sacrifice that creature, it'll then trigger the Exploit effect. So here, with the Fell Stinger, when it exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Now, you don't have to sacrifice a creature. So you can just play this as a 3/2 Death Touch for 3 mana, which is a pretty good rate, to be honest. Or you can sacrifice itself as well. So if you really want to draw some cards, or if your opponent's at 2 life in this case, you can play this, sacrifice it to itself, opponent loses 2 life, draw 2 cards, or you lose 2 life, draw 2 cards, because it does say target player. So it's one of these effects where you're cashing in value from one thing and giving it to another thing. It's only sacrificial effects, obviously, you're sacrificing things, but it's a way to get a lot of value from what you're going to be playing. So I think that's going to be another interesting mechanic, and a way to, you got to have a look at making lots of bodies, like little 1/1 tokens and stuff, to get the right effect out of these cards. The last mechanic we're going to be looking at is Disturb, and it's a returner from Midnight Hunt. Now, there is a bit of a difference in that before, a Disturb card would be a creature on the backside. This time, if you cast it for its Disturb cost from the graveyard, you're going to get an enchantment of some sort, usually an aura. I think it might all be auras, I'm not 100% sure on that actually, but it's an enchantment on the backside. So this time, Blue-White is caring a bit more about these enchantments, so I think that will put a different dimension on it. Probably not quite as powerful as Disturb was in Midnight Hunt, but it's probably going to be pretty powerful anyway, because the original Disturb was really, really strong, and this is just a slight variation on that, and creatures are probably better than enchantments overall, but creatures are still, getting the extra value is still going to be pretty good. If you've watched this far, then I do have a code to give out. So one of you lucky viewers will get this code. It's from the Midnight Hunt pre-release pack. I got a few pre-release packs and felt I might as well give these codes out. Those who are regulars to the channel know I do this from time to time. Just whenever I get a code, there's no rhyme or reason to it, and I've got the code to give out today. So again, thanks again. If you do use it, let me know in the comments so other people know not to try and use it by the time they log in and type it in and retype it in when they get it wrong the first time. So it would be good if you let me know that you've got it, and also that helps boost the YouTube stuff as well as likes and subscribes and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get on looking at the archetypes. So first up, Red-Black, the Rakdos archetype, and it is all about blood. I think blood's going to turn up a lot in this mechanic, in this format, but the mechanic is really at its best in Red-Black. And you can see here from the uncommon for the set, it's Blood Tithe Harvester, Red-Black for a 3/2, so already pretty good. Enters a battlefield to create a blood token, so that's a bonus. And then tap, sacrifice Blood Tithe Harvester, target creature gets -X/-X at the end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So 2 mana 3/2, which creates something that's beneficial to you, is fantastic to start with. And this effect is good. You know, sometimes you might just need to remove their creature or remove their problematic blocker so you can get in with the other things. And you know, that's all upside here. So, you know, there's lots and lots of good things going on here. Of course, it's a 2 mana gold card, so it's going to be a little bit tough to cast sometimes, but it's pretty strong. Other ways you'll see it at the common and uncommon level is things like Lacerate Flesh. So here it just says Lacerate Flesh deals 4 damage to target creature and create a number of blood tokens equal to the amount of excess damages creature has dealt this way. So if you cast this on a 2-drop, then sorry, not 2-drop, a 2 toughness creature, then there'll be 2 toughness excess because 2 damage to the creature, 2 damage excess. So you'll create 2 blood tokens. And there's lots and lots and lots of ways to generate blood tokens, not just in red and black, but primarily in red and black. Also got some cards which care about blood tokens, mainly at the uncommon level. I think there's one common which cares about blood tokens. So this one is, whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice a blood token. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on weapon security and draw a card. And for 5 mana, which can quite easily turn into a 5/5 draw a card when it attacks, is pretty nuts, honestly. Like, that's a really, really strong card. It's almost definitely going to trade with something, and you're going to get a draw card as well. Chances are they're going to have to jump block it, or you get a 2/1 with the attack. I don't know, but, you know, this is so strong. And if you get it in for 1 and it survives, then you can get it another time next time. It's unbelievable. So, really, really justified uncommon here. Green-White is all about humans. And it's not just humans, it's training as well. I think training is centered in Green-White. In fact, I think most of, if not all of the cards are Green-White. And it also cares about some human stuff as well. So you've got the Sigardan Paladin, 4 mana for a 4/4, so already a decent rate. As long as you've put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature this turn, Sigardan Paladin has Trample and Lifelink. So this is pretty good. You can put counters on one of your training creatures because usually they've got small powers, and 4 power is quite strong. And when you do that, when you train using Sigardan Paladin, it gets Trample and Lifelinks, which is really, really good. And then 1 Green-White, target creature you control the +1/+1 counter on it gains Trample and Lifelink until end of turn. So you can play this, you can attack with it in the next turn with a creature which has training, and then you can activate its ability and give the creature with their training, now it has a counter on it, Lifelink and Trample as well. So you can really, really come back from the brink with this card if need be. And also, if you just have this up, you can leave it as a blocker. And then if you've already got a creature with counters on it, which is going to be quite likely, I think, in Green-White, then you can just kind of send that in, leave this back as a 4/4 blocker, and then you've got like a 2 or 3 power Lifelinger. So that is really, really good. Other ways we can see this, so you can see on the left here, you got Griff Rider, and this is a creature, just a 3 mana 2/1 with training. And if you get this into a 3 mana 2/1, yeah. If you get this into a 3 mana 3/2 with training, so you get an attack with a 3 power creature, that's really, really good. A 3 power 3 mana flyer is great. Also got Later Rest here. It looks at the slightly different side of things. It's an enchantment. We do see a lot of enchantments in this format. I think it's like a mini theme. And whenever a human you control dies, draw a card. So this is caring about those humans. And whenever a creature you control dies with a +1/+1 counter on it, you gain 2 life. So again, it's caring about that training thing going on. So yes, okay, training is centered in this section, but it's also looking at the humans as well. And some decks might be slightly more one way than the other, but there's going to be loads of humans, particularly in Green-White, but in a few other colours as well. Red-White has some of the vampire themes in there. It's a bit of a mishmash, but it's really all about attacking. So you can see here Markov Waltzer. It's 2 red, white for a 1/3 flying haste. Okay, not the best rate in the world. At the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 2 target creatures you control each get +1/+0 until the end of turn. So it's a 4 mana 2/3 flying haste, which is a bit, well, quite a bit better than a 1/3 flying haste. And I can pump another thing. It seems okay. You might be able to get some cool stuff going on with training, so you can buff your non-training creatures so that the training creatures can grow a little bit more. So that's a cool little thing. I'm not totally sold on it, but hasty flyers are going to be pretty good in any kind of red-white beats deck, I suppose. Militia Rallier is another card you might see. So this is a card where it says can't attack alone, 3 mana 3/3, can't attack alone. When it attacks, untap target creature. So you can attack with it, untap itself or something else. This kind of not attacking alone or needing 2 things to attack is a little mini theme apparently in red-white. And there's a few things you see it on. And it kind of shows in this Honeymoon Hearse as well, although it's not really 2 things attacking. But it's a 3 mana 5/5 trample vehicle. And instead of having a normal crew cost where you need a crew with a certain amount of power, you just need to tap 2 creatures. So if you get a load of 1/1 tokens, I think that's going to be great. You know, 3 mana 5/5 trample is really, really strong, especially if you get it down turn 3. So definitely your pretty standard red-white beats deck. The Boros players out there are going to be happy. And I know a few of them who will be really, really happy with this archetype. Red-green is a return on werewolves, and early suggestions say that they're potentially a bit more strong this time around. So the red-green archetype is going to be stronger in this set than it was in the last set. And here as the face card, we've got Child of the Pack. So this is a human werewolf, 4 mana 2/5, interesting stat line. And you pay 2 red, green, create a 2/2 green wolf creature. Doesn't even need to tap. If you can get 8 mana, you can create 2 wolves a turn. And that's actually quite strong. On the backside, now this isn't the case with a lot of these werewolves, but like in Midnight Hunt, usually you'll have the backside is similar to the front, but better. Maybe with an extra ability or a bit extra power and toughness. This one, it's a bit different. So other creatures you control get +1/+0, and it has Trommel. So we don't get the same effect. It would be cool if you could have that bit which creates a token as well, but it didn't fit on the card. So you've just got a very different backside to they have the front side, but end up 5 mana 5/5 trample with makes other creatures you control have +1/+0 is pretty good. And the front side's quite a good mana sink as well. Also, the front side's good with a mana sink because you can use that as your instead of casting a spell on your turn, and then you can get to flip it on the next turn. So that's pretty useful. Some other cards, looking at the werewolf archetype, so in green here, you've got Wolf Strike, 2 in a green for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn if it's night. So it's caring about getting this to night time. And then it deals combat damage equal to its power to a creature you don't control. It's instant as well, so that can help you flip. So this is a card you're quite happy to wait, go to your opponent's turn, make it night, and then cast this on their turn to make it night and to get the +2/+0. Also, it's a punch spell, not a fight spell, so that's a really, really strong removal spell, and it's common, so that's one to look out for. In red, here you got Runebound Wolf, 1 in red for a 2/2, already decent rate. 3 in a red, tap it, deals damage equal to the number of wolves and werewolves you control to target opponent. So a way to just push that last little bit of damage over there. If you've got a few wolves hanging around, then you can tap this. You can do it instant speed as well, so you can do it on your opponent's turn. And so you leave other things up as a blocker, you leave it as a blocker, and then you can tap it, even block with it, tap it, and then deal damage. So I think that's quite a good effect. Nothing too busted, but it's definitely a way to close out the game once they might have a few blockers up that you're having trouble getting past. Green-black is, and sorry, gotta make the joke.
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure everybody's doing the same joke, but it's all about the high toughness creatures, which is colloquially known as big butts. So, Ancient Lumberknot here, 2 black-green, and each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, which is a slight variation on what we've seen in this before. Sometimes it just says deals damage equal to its toughness instead. This means that deal damage equal to the toughness if the toughness is bigger, which is an improvement actually. So what we need for this is some creatures with high toughness, and we've got a really good one in Unhallowed Phalanx. Phalanx, not sure on that. 5 mana for a 1/13, but if you have your Ancient Lumberknot, then this is going to be effectively a 13/13. It won't actually have 13 power, but it will be dealing damage as if it did have 13 power. And, like, who doesn't want a 13/13 for 5 mana? Like, that's so strong. Yeah, okay, it doesn't have trample or anything like that, but it's a real good indication of why some of these creatures are really good. We've got other things though that care about creatures with a lot of toughness. So you've got Dormant Grove here, 4 mana. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, if that creature has toughness 6 or greater, transform Dormant Grove, transform to 3/6 with vigilance, and other creatures you control have vigilance. So if you've got creatures with massive toughness, then giving them vigilance is going to be great because you can attack with these big toughness creatures, which are potentially dealing a lot of damage because of that toughness. Now I think it's going to be quite tough to get this transformed. If I didn't know Unhallowed Phalanx was going to be in the set, then I think I would have been more wary of it, but we've got enough creatures with quite big toughness, and once you put that counter on it, it'll be good. However, a 4 mana do nothing enchantment isn't great. If casting this on an empty board, then you're not really doing very much. So we'll have to wait and see on this one, but it does show one of these effects which cares about toughness rather than just a creature having a big toughness. So I thought I'd include this in the little show here. Blue-black is where Exploit is centered, and it's still about zombies, but here I've got the Skull Scab. It's 2 mana, 2/2 with Exploit, and whenever a creature you control exploits a non-token creature, so it doesn't have to be this one, it can be any creature you control exploiting, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Now the weird thing is here, it's got to exploit a non-token creature, so you're going to be creating tokens, and you can't kind of repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. But there are some good ways of using this. So one example here, you got Stitch Assistant. It's an exploit creature. So when Stitch Assistant exploits a creature, scry one to draw a card. So if you're going to cast this, you're going to exploit a creature, a non-token creature. You can scry one, draw a card, and create a 2/2. And that can be really good, especially if you're sacrificing like a small creature that you can get a 2/2 zombie. Note that these zombie tokens don't have Decayed, because Decayed isn't returning from the previous set. So, the zombie tokens can block. They can attack again as long as they don't die. So that's something important to remember. Another creature which I think looks really interesting, Undead Butler. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. When Undead Butler dies, you may exile it. If when you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a good creature to exploit on. Enters the battlefield a little mill, so you'll potentially stack your graveyard up. You do have to exile it, so you can't do the infinite loops, which I did think when I first saw the card. But you can this is a really good card to exploit. Imagine you have the Undead Butler, you mill some stuff, you get a good creature you like in there, then play the Skull Scab, sacrifice the Undead Butler, get a 2/2, so you're upgrading your creature actually, and then you get to do similar things again in the future. So I think that's a really, really cool card and a really good way of looking at this exploit mechanic. Black-white is another vampire colour pair, so it's the Mardu colour pairs in here, black-white, black-red, and red-white. This is the last of the 3. And it is about a little bit about life gain. So life gain's the kind of sub-theme to the vampires in here. So you got Markov Purifier, 1 white black for a 2/3 lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. So you've got to pay for the card draw, which is a little bit annoying. But if you've already gained life, and it's not one of these ones where you got to gain a certain amount of life. If you do gain life, you can pay 2 and you're drawing a card. And paying 2 to draw a card is actually pretty good, especially if you're getting it off a beneficial effect anyway. Looking at life gain stuff, we've got Heron of Hope here for 4 mana. It's a 2/3 flyer, and if you gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. And then 1 and a white, Heron of Hope gains lifelink until end of turn. Pretty solid card, pretty solid common. 4 mana, 2/3 flyer, not great, but this kind of extra life gain might be useful if you've got lots of these little gain 1 life, gain 1 life, gain 1 life effects. And we've also got Courier Bat here. So Courier Bat 3 mana for a 2/2. So it's a Windrake stats flyer. And when it enters the battlefield, if you gain life this turn, return up to 1 target creature from the graveyard to your hand. So you've got a little lifelink there that you can attack in with that you can potentially trade off with something, gain yourself a little bit of life, then play Courier back, get it back to your hand, and that's some pretty good card advantage. So I think these are all solid cards. Nothing looking massively busted, but lots of solid cards in this archetype. Blue-red is a return to spells, but this time it looks like it's non-creature spells. So you can see this in Wandering Mind here. It's a 3 mana 2/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them, put it in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So this is non-creature spells. And we'll see this in a few other things as well. So Whispering Wizard, 4 mana for a 3/2 when you cast a non-creature spell. So that could be artifact or enchantment and things as well. There's lots of enchantments in this format, so I think that's why we're going down this route. Create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with fly, and this ability triggers only once each turn. And I think that's pretty strong. We've seen similar effects to this in the past be quite good. And non-creature spell is a lot better than instants and sorceries, especially in this format where we're going to be seeing a lot of these enchantments. Another one is Kessig Flamebreather here. 1 in red for a 1/3. When a non-creature spell is cast, when you cast a non-creature spell, Kessig Flamebreather deals 1 damage to each opponent. So it's a good way to kind of ping in with a bit of damage there. Yeah, solid card, and look forward to playing this. I usually like Visit spells, and this seems like a more powerful version of Visit spells, widen the reach of those what counts as a spell. So yeah, looking forward to this. Here we're looking at the blue-white, and as I've said before, this is where the Disturb's going on. So you have Brian Coma here for 1 white-blue, a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield or becomes a target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So it's a 1/1 which makes a 1/1, and you can, if you kind of stack auras up on this, bear in mind that the backside of these are often, if not always, auras, then you get more and more and more 1/1 flyers, and then they can actually hold auras quite well as well, so that's pretty good. Disturb for white-blue. And on the backside, this Disturb is an aura. Enchant creature whenever Brine-bound Gift enters the battlefield or enchanted creature becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So it's the same effect as the front side, and this is the same thing with a lot of these Disturb. They're either complementary or very similar effects on the backside, but essentially making the creature that you're enchanting into the original creature. It's been possessed, it's been given the power of the spirit that's on the front side. Or sometimes, and you'll see this in some unusual situations, it is a opposite effect. So sometimes it'll like stop something from attacking or something like that. We have a couple of spells here which care about the enchantments. So Dawnhard Geist, it's a spirit warlock actually, which is an interesting type. 2 mana 1/3. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 2 life. So tying with the black-white life gain effects there, and with the enchantments from here. We've also got Storm Chaser Drake. It's a 2 mana, 2/1 flying, so pretty good stat line already. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell you control, draw a card. So if you're putting auras on this, and a 2 mana, 2/1 flyer is probably something you want to put auras on, you're going to be drawing cards. And this is an absolute engine. I think this is going to be a really, really strong card. And look at that art as well. It's like a lightning dragon. Who doesn't love a lightning dragon? The last colour pair to talk about is Simic. So here we've got Vile Spawn Spider. 2 mana for a 2/3 reach. Okay, great start already. Beginning of the upkeep, mill a card. And 2 green, blue, sacrifice Vile Spawn Spider. Create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. So blue-green is all about self-mill. You'll see a lot of cards which care about milling you, or a lot of cards which mill you. Got to watch your graveyard here. Got to watch your library here to make sure you're not going to mill yourself too much, because then you will lose the game. But we've got some other cards which care about the milling here. So Witness the Future, 2 and a blue, sorcery. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from the graveyard into the library. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put one of them in your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. So it's a way to restock your library after you have milled most of it in your graveyard. Put the best things in there. You get to draw a card as well. I'll be interested to see how this one turns out. I feel like it's quite good. And I feel like if it is a good card, I think the format's going to be really good. If you get a few of these, then you can kind of restock. Always make sure you're getting gas. But it does take a bit of work to get there. To help you get this stuff in your graveyard, you've got cards like Moldgraph Millipede. So when it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, then put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard. So it's a 5 mana 2/2. Chances are by turn 5 you're going to have a few things in your graveyard. So you do have that on its side, because it's not just the ones that you mill. It's anything that's in there already, and it's milling a few extras as well. So potentially quite a big 5-drop here. And big green creatures is not a bad place to be. Each of these colour pairs does have its own legendary creature, so there's 10 of these legendary creatures at rare. Now, because the rare didn't really go into too much detail, and they don't always follow the archetypes themes, but often they do, and it's worth pointing out, and you can see them all here. I'm probably covering up the blue-white one, but you can see them all here. In fact, turn off the camera for a second, so you can see the blue-white one. So yeah, these are all available to draft. If you're lucky enough to get them in your archetype, I think they'll all be good additions, and but nothing too exciting going on. Looking at some counter spells. So we have 4 different counter spells here. Siphon Essence at 3 mana. Wash Away, which is really just a cancel if we're being honest here. It's got that cleave cost, but I suppose it can counter things coming from the graveyard. So yeah, the original cost is possibly quite good for countering things from the graveyard, which I've only just thought about. Guys like Snare, which is another 3 mana spell, and then Syncopate, which is a returning spell, which is flexible. I think Syncopate's been quite good in the past. It's 2 mana for a mana tithe, effectively. So can't remember, miscast is it? Which means you got to pay 1. So, and then you can scale from there. 3 mana. You got to pay 2. Late in the game, it's not going to be as good. It's better early, but it can counter some pretty big spells for only 2 mana if it's in the right conditions. But 3 mana does seem to be the cost here. If your opponent's only got 1 blue mana, you've got a spell in the graveyard you can cast, so a Disturb spell, and a spell in hand that you can cast, and you're not sure which one to cast. Definitely cast the one in hand, because the Wash Away can counter the one in the graveyard really handily, and it's just a way to kind of play around that one a little bit. So I think it's always important to look at the counters that are available to know what could be coming from your opponent, and to know what you can play around. And okay, there's you got Siphon Essence, which is 3 mana, only targets a creature or planeswalker, but you've got Guys Like Snare, and it costs 1 less to cast if you control a spirit, so it can be a 2 mana spell if they control a spirit, and it also costs another 1 less if it's enchantment. Actually, I thought it was one or the other, but if you control a spirit and enchantment, it only costs 1 mana. Can't target spell unless his opponent pays 3. So that's one to bear in mind if the opponent's on like the spirits deck and they've got lots of enchantments and spirits. And yes, you can play around it, but paying 3 is pretty much going to counter the spell in most instances. Some other instance speed shenanigans, 1-drop instance are quite important to know. I think something you can tell just from how arenas tapping or the mana and putting the stops in and stuff like that, what they might have in hand. So there's actually exactly one in each color if we're not counting the counter spells. So blue has a few Syncopate and things as well. But we've got exactly 1 card in each colour, which doesn't always happen. You got Piercing Light in white, which deals 2 damage to target attack and a blocking creature, scry 1. So it's a little bit of a removal spell during combat. Blue has Alchemist's Retrieval, so this is a cleave spell. The front face, it bounces something that they own to their hand, so something of your own. The cleave cost, which is 1 in the blue, they bounce something to their own. Now, this is quite easy to spot sometimes, especially if you're on the play and your opponent's on the draw. If they play an island and then you play a creature on turn 2, and all of a sudden their stops are popping up, that means they've got an Alchemist's Retrieval in there. No, it doesn't, because it'll only count if they've got something. But you can still spot it. So if they've got a single blue up and it's stopping, then yes, they can't cast this now on your stuff, but they can cleave it later on, or they could potentially save their stuff. So that's what they could want to look out for. Undying Malice for a black. Until end of turn, target creature gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield with it under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. If they're attacking, they make an attack. They've only got 1 black mana open. It's flashing up. You know the story by now. This is going to be what they've got in hand. Red Flame Blast Bolt deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature dies, this turn it would exile instead. Better Magma Spray, I think, from what I can tell. Maybe. Yeah, I think that's basically just a better Magma Spray. So yeah, it hits planeswalkers as well. And then Massive Might, 1 mana, gains +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. Just another one of those combat tricks that you will see. A little bit on Graveyard here, because as it's Innistrad, we'll be using it at Graveyard a lot. Green Blue's self-milling. Blue-White is using these enchantments which come back. And there isn't that much. I think there was a bit more in Midnight Hunt. You've got Diagraph Scavenger here. A 4 mana 2/3 Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 card from a graveyard. If a creature was exiled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Bear in mind that all of the Disturb cards are creatures on their front face, so they do count as creatures. But a 4 mana 2/3, okay, you get to drain a little bit, and it's got Death Touch. Yeah, it's probably a bit better actually. It's a good blocker, but it's not a massive scary threat, and it's definitely not the 5 mana one from Midnight Hunt where it exiles 2 things and makes 2 zombies, and yeah, that was pretty horrendous for these graveyard strategies. We've got a couple of those as well, both Artifact, Honored Heirloom, tap it and a mana of any colour, so it's a manalith, and 2 tap it, exile a card from a graveyard. You can do this again and again and again, so it can definitely eat down the graveyard. Monoliths are sometimes playable, and might be playable here. I haven't really looked too much at how likely you're going to be doing 3 colours. And then the last one, Lantern of the Lost. When it enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard, and 1 tap, exile it, exile all cards from all graveyards, then draw a card. It's 2 mana, exile a graveyard, draw a card, and that might just be playable. It's definitely sideboardable if your opponent's really abusing their graveyards. So bear these ones in mind. It looks like graveyard hate isn't as prevalent as it was in Midnight Hunt. There's still some cards there. You still need to know when to pick it up, and you still need to know when to play it. Then, last but certainly not least, the Boogeyman of the format. And I think this is going to be Blood Vial Purveyor. Not least because not even a mythic, it's a rare. It's a 4 mana, 5/6, flying trample. It's one of these things you could just got to kill before it does. The opponent gets to untap. It also has, whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. That's a creature spell or anything. Now, this is weird because your opponent gets blood tokens with this on your side of the battlefield. And blood tokens do seem to be good, especially with this card. Like, a lot of people said, well, if this card's making your opponents get blood tokens, the blood tokens must be really good. But, when it attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each blood token a defending player controls. Yes, they can sack them and loot, but they might not want to loot. They might not want to discard the cards that are in hand. They can dig for a removal spell, I suppose. But to be honest, this is nuts. Your opponent gets a couple of blood tokens. They might already have some blood tokens if they're a red or black deck, or a red-black deck potentially. You can have this in black-white or black-green or anything. And if they've got a few blood tokens, then you're just going to swing in for roughly 1 billion. And that is just nuts. I think this is going to be a really, really annoying card. One of those ones that, because it's rare as well, it's just like, oh no, grown test card. But hey, every format needs a Boogeyman, and that's going to be this one. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you got all this way, really, really thank you. The YouTube tracks the amount of hours watched, and how long people are watching watching the video. So when a video's watched a lot, I really, really, really do appreciate it. So yeah, thanks again for watching. Looking forward to drafting the first draft on Thursday. You can hear my voice already going. So I'm going to cut it off there. Thanks again, and I hope to see you at the draft table.